Our next guest is Hamid Bahzad, lecturer at British University of Bahrain, to shed light on the university's latest program, BUB Roundtable Podcast. With his students Ayman and Al-Juri, welcome to our studio today.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for having us.
So tell us, first of all, about the podcast, what's its main purpose, and how did you come to about this idea?
Right, so the podcast itself is actually part of a bigger vision that we basically had for the students, and it's something that we noticed very early on, that they have enough rich academic content to build minds, but not enough content to build character. So we started seeking ways, initiatives to basically endorse that or build that within the students themselves. So what we started maybe back in 2019 is we felt there was a gap between the educational content and practical experience. So we started to go out and actually see what's going on in the country. We went out to do site visits, we had meetings with certain entities, and we felt that was an enriching experience for the students, and it really made them a lot more well-rounded.
And something different than the usual.
Yeah. Of course. And then what we decided to do is build on that and basically start getting students to meet officials, start to know how did these officials get to the position that they basically have today, what were their experiences, what were the challenges, and basically during that time COVID kicked in. So this was basically adaptability to COVID. And it came about that we started actually having these meetings virtually. So we didn't want to stop these meetings.
Of course, you wanted it to continue even though there was COVID. It's like, okay, how do we do this? How do we continue what we're doing?
Of course. And the idea came out when we were doing it recorded on Zoom and stuff. We started to actually record the sessions. And then when we recorded the sessions, we felt, well, this is kind of turning into a program. This is a bit of a podcast, let's say.
Okay, amazing.
And we felt, why not actually do it, physically with a camera crew and everything. And that's basically how the podcast came about. But overall, as I said, it's a stepping stone. It's trying to get students more aware of what's going on, getting them that practical experience, bridging that gap, and overall just building their character.
Building their character just so that when they go out into the real world after university, they can see, okay, it's actually very different than what we're actually in. Exactly. How did you guys find this experience?
Yeah, for us, the podcast was as a linking bridge between our academic life as a students and our professional life.
Of course.
So as Mr. Hamad said, we have enough content to build minds, but not characters. So we lacked on that side. So the podcast was a lifetime opportunity for us to calibrate both the academic and professional aspects.
And you, what do you think about the experience?
The experience was transformational in terms of character development and confidence. Well, the podcast will always be a benchmark for me to shake off the nerves such as today. It's just amazing to see how a person climbed ladders, accepted failures and succeeded to be a CEO or a minister. So the podcast gave us an opportunity to see what's behind the sparkly picture of Minister X or CEO.
Of course, it shows you something very different than like what we learned. Like it shows you the real world. This is what I love that you guys are doing in your podcast, that you're showing the students that, okay, yes, of course we learn all these things, but there is more out there as well. Yeah. So, of course, I'm guessing this experience has built a lot of character for a lot of people.
Well, the academic life is way different than the real life.
It is very different. I agree with you completely. Can you tell us, like, how are your topics designed? Is there a specific segment or a certain age group that have to be part of it?
Basically, for us to go back a bit as well, so as we said, the podcast is a bit of a stepping stone. And one of the reasons why we thought we would create it into a podcast rather than just continuing these visits is because we felt initially that all the insights we were getting were unparalleled from these officials, whether it's from the public or the private sector.
Yeah. So
we felt, why not have a, let's say, a more public platform to share these unparalleled experiences with everybody else. At the same time, we also thought that, let's say in terms of a target age, we were sort of targeting more the 40 and below.
Okay.
And the purpose for that is, I think with the students as well, when they met with officials, you sometimes always think when it comes to any country or any management of any sort, why is there no focus on this? Why is there no focus on that?
Correct.
But when you give that person or that leader the chance to explain to you what are the priorities and how your ideas could be on the list, but at a certain time, it just makes you understand, yes, it's being looked at. There is attention given.
There is attention given.
And I think with people under 40 as well, and I think especially being from the Middle East and a lot of emphasis on private education and all that, is the element of unable to understand or being unable to understand the Arabic jargon of what's being said, let's say. So trying to have an official on a podcast explaining what's going on, what his or her ministry are doing or company, in layman's terms, giving people below 40 the ability to develop their own ideologies rather than just adopting them from father, uncle, mother.
It's them learning it direct from that person. What are the next steps for the podcast? What are you guys planning to do?
Well, in terms of any platform, any channel, let's say, it's viewership. So we're trying to increase the amount of viewership. We're trying to expand. We also started off as purely being focused on real estate topics.
Okay.
We also noticed that there has to be a diversity. We need to reach people of different ages, of different spheres, of different discussions and trends. So we're kind of trying to expand those barriers. At the same time as well, expand maybe the barriers. So maybe not just being a Bahraini podcast, but more of a regionally based.
Try to spread out to everyone else around the Gulf and whatnot. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before we end our segment?
For myself, I'd like to thank the university. I'd like to thank the chairman of Board of Trustees of British University of Bahrain. I'd like to also thank our president as well for all the support they've given us throughout this period and the continued support we also have been getting.
I'm very interested, you guys. I actually want to listen to your podcast. I'm hoping anybody can listen to us, right?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, amazing, amazing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, that was definitely inspiring. Viewers, don't go away. We'll be right back.